Hi everyone, just want to give a warm welcome to everyone here today in ELT 5 at La Trobe University. Also a very warm welcome to everyone live streaming at home via Delegate Connect, the Join app. So my name's Daniel O'Kane, I work at Mathspace. Mathspace is an online maths software provider. We provide maths resources to schools across Australia. So I actually won't be doing much of the talking today. Today's presentation is going to mostly be done by Vaughan Nikitin. He is the numeracy ninja, or the head of mathematics at Fitzroy High School, and also their numeracy learning specialist. So Vaughan will be sharing today how their school and the journey that they took to replace traditional textbooks in their maths department with Mathspace, and also some other online digital tools which Vaughan will talk about today as well. And so what you'll learn is that it's not always easy finding the right resource for your school. So Vaughan's going to be talking about the journey that he and his team at Fitzroy High School have taken over the years. So I think we're going back almost a decade today. And so, yeah, we will have time at the end of the presentation for any questions. You might be wanting to direct questions to Vaughan specifically about, you know, their resource adoption, or you might have questions for me as well about Mathspace and how it works. So we should have about 5-10 minutes at the end of the presentation for that. All right, that's enough from me. A very warm welcome, Vaughan Nikitin. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, the sound's working. Just a note about the numeracy ninja. My Year 12 specialist students didn't tell me, but 3 years ago when they got to the exam and they're all in uniform, they'd all printed the numeracy ninja t-shirts up. So I have a bit of an anxiety disorder. I started wearing this because I didn't want to sweat on kids' maths books when I'm checking their work and so on. They just started calling me the numeracy ninja, so I'll keep that. And the science samurai. But I'm in leadership now, so I don't get to teach science as much as I used to. So this is a journey. It's been a long journey. So I came to teaching late. I went back to uni in my 30s to follow my interests. I started off doing medicine out of school and didn't like the hospitals, and obviously the anxiety wasn't going to do well in my internship. Went back in my 30s to do maths and philosophy, and thought my philosophy of mind interest area and epistemology, that's happening in the secondary school, so it came into secondary teaching that way. From the time I've been in the schools, Fitzroy High School was closed down during the Kennett government. The community built it back up again, got it opened again, but it was very much focused on inquiry learning. So it's been going about 6 years when I got there in 2013. And the first thing we did with the Year 7s was redecorate their bedroom and get them to build a model, and we had an exhibition night where parents would come in and see it. And I'll show you an example of that later on. It was clear what the problem there with fluency was in particular, and we're looking into ways how technology could help that. So the problem is knowing students, let's see if my laser pointer's working here, knowing students, assigning fluency problems and supporting students at whatever level they're ready to learn next is one of our mantras. Students, teachers and families, it's a problem for all of us. We want them to consolidate their learning from the classroom, particularly important at where we are at Fitzroy. We want our value add as teachers we see as problem solving, reasoning and understanding. Direct instruction, explicit instruction, fluency is crucial, but we just don't have the time to cover, create critical and creative thinkers, as well as people who can just do the drills. And I'm not a big fan of Kumon style, where we don't like accelerating students straight up to level 10 algebra when they don't understand the context of it. And you can see when we test those students, they often don't understand the context at all. They're full of misconceptions. So it's not the whole story, but in 2013, this is one of the few hottest 100 number ones in the last 10 years since I became a teacher. So I'm actually familiar with. So it's just been too busy since I've been teaching. So that's 2013. So inquiry first, fluency second. This is the redecorate your bedroom task. The problem is it's more imagination at play than precision. So they didn't have the fluency skills in decimals to be able to create scale drawings. They're getting their doll's chair to put in their new bedroom that's not to scale at all. We thought, well, it's great that they're having fun, but having fun is not engaged in learning. I came from a software background as well, so I thought there must be other ways that we can tackle the fluency issues in mathematics. So NAPLAN results and on-demand testing suggest poor fluency. Whoops, that is, I've got one back. Where's my back? Yeah. So 2014. AusVELS comes in for the first time. So I got my first experience with the curriculum changing on me. So all the plans we'd made had to change. But I introduced this kind of the ninja theme as well, the Grasshopper Apprentice Master. We looked at dynamic grouping within classrooms, self-selecting. So the masters were the students that are on a trajectory to do methods and specialists. The apprentices are on the trajectory to do general, and the grasshoppers are our numeracy cohort and foundation cohort. One of the great new innovative technologies back then was printable worksheets. Expand with answers. So we had booklets for number with all the fluency topics from the Australian curriculum covered. And the students would select these. If they were too challenging, they've probably chosen the wrong, self-selected the wrong group. If they're not challenging enough, they've self-selected the wrong group. They were pretty effective at self-selecting themselves. You've got to trust the students. It's one of our values at Fitzroy High School. And our testing suggested improved fluency a little bit. So racing ahead to 2015. Do people at home get to hear that? Excellent. Okay, and through the Rubens. So on-demand, so we're still in AusVELS, on-demand Khan Academy, and with my software background, particularly I love a spreadsheet. I map the Australian curriculum to Khan Academy. So every fluency descriptor I map directly to Khan Academy links. And this is an example of the sort of spreadsheet we could give students. I could also map the on-demand results, import them directly into this spreadsheet, and it would immediately show if they've got, and you've got to use the laser pointer here. So with a traffic light scheme, which I'm still using a traffic light scheme with a different scoring. So do not understand, some, half, most, all. And this student's looking at, so we could give for fluency, this student, it would be over 7, because they're getting some level 8 questions right. There's a lot more to these spreadsheets, but we don't have the time to go through them. And the problem is, they're hard to read, so we could export them into this format here. So you could see the grasshoppers would do levels 5 to 6. This is for a year 8 student in actual fact, so the master levels were 5 to 8. Again, I don't like extending students beyond level 8. I'd much rather extend students laterally with problem solving, reasoning and understanding. And being a year 12 specialist teacher, they're the skills that I want students to have most. And you're stealing from the future if you extend students in lower year levels with level 9 material, for instance. So really positive feedback from students and families, unique tailored results from on-demand and updated by teachers progressively. It looked like we'd found a solution with links directly to Khan Academy. And fluency is improving a little bit more. 2016. I know this one. I do remember this one. Back when I used to listen to the Hottest 100, they still used guitars. So many spreadsheets. So there's a spreadsheet for every student, there's a spreadsheet for every class, there's a spreadsheet for the whole school. Not all the teachers are data literate. So I'd end up doing the spreadsheets for whole classes for other teachers, and soon I started to think I wanted to train them on how to do it. My principal at the time looked into hiring a software developer to automate the process. This is an example of our year 8 cohort back then. We've got the on-demand results there. So there's my mouse there. So we've got the on-demand results at the start of year 7. That's the change between start of year 7 and semester 1, so term 2. It's the change between term 2 and term 4. And that's the change over the year. There's the student scores, and down below here were the actual students. And we could see the whole curriculum of what they got traffic lighted as well. So you've got the summary for the 4 classes over here. So 8YZ, 8W to 8Z, so the whole class, these are median scores. So at the end of year 7, they're sitting at 6.21. this was my class, and I was so disappointed that I did not get a median of 1 curriculum level growth for a calendar year. I was gunning for it. We did in the next year. Oh, we did in year 7 that year. I was the first one to get it. I was pretty happy with that. I'll come back to that soon. Another problem, Khan Academy links start to change. So I've got 800 links in the 278 curriculum descriptors in the Australian curriculum, and the links start to change on me. I did Google Forms and got the students to tell me when they'd broken so that I could update a central spreadsheet, but it's, again, not sustainable. We also got notice from the environmental officer that the Grasshopper Apprentice Master Worksheet booklets equivalent to felling many trees. Our paper cut system exports how many equivalent trees you've got from your printing. I printed more than anyone else, despite using Khan Academy in the school. So we bit the bullet. I'm not in charge at this stage. So this is only my 4th year teaching, 2016. So I did year 7-8 and then 7-8 again, just to do it better and try and work on all these programs that I'd put together. Hide the laser pointer there. So we moved to textbooks. So the students at level, we call them at level. So their curriculum levels match their age group levels, their grade levels. We get positive feedback from students. It allows us to assign questions for them and work on the problem solving, reasoning and understanding. I was never a fan of the problem solving, reasoning work in textbooks. I think teachers are better at knowing their students and knowing what's going to work for their students. And our model now is a dynamic grouping co-teaching model, which I'll explain a bit later on. We've used TLI funding to fund extra teachers and blocking maths teachers together so we can actually do dynamic grouping when it's needed. So we go back to that year 8 summary. 6.21 at the end of year 7, that's median. So year 8 textbook for those students going into year 8 is really only suitable for half of the cohort at most. 6.2, you'd hope that maybe they catch it up. I see it as people call it a spiral, but it's not. The growth in maths, it's a spiral helix. And so as we're going through number, algebra, measurement, geometry, statistics, probability, we're trying, and problem solving, reasoning and understanding going out this way and growing this way as well. So the student that's sitting on 6.2, you'd hope that you'd be able to bridge the gap for a year 8 textbook in the next year. But the students below that, it's really a stretch. And I'm sure everyone knows that the gap gets bigger as you go to year 10 as well. So 6.21 at the end of, did I say start of year 8 was the slide before that. Textbooks are costly, especially the kids can't use them. I had one student in year 7, the first year we used textbooks and we were doing algebra, and I said, right on the board, do 4A, B, C, 5D. And he said, I can't do it. What do you mean? You haven't tried? At least give it a try. No, I can't do it. You're trying to tell me that that's 4 times something. There was instructions for what exercises to do in the textbook. It wasn't algebra, but that's how confused he was about algebra. Textbooks, if you can't find the questions, let alone do the questions, it's very, well, I felt it was far too expensive for our, we got a lot of students from the Housing Commission as well, a lot of migrant families at us and our sister school, Collingwood College. 2017.
Sick and tired of the Photoshop. Show me something natural like Afro with your pride. Show me something natural. I want to feel
I don't mind this one. I didn't know what it was going to sound like actually. But I do like that. I like that. One of the other teachers that I was running through this yesterday said really didn't like that track. So it's too many spreadsheets for teachers. The curriculum's changed. The mapping's fractured. So we try a maths pathway. I'm still not the learning area leader yet. Definitely not a learning specialist yet. So the people with more experience were getting those roles. And it looked to solve the teacher workload problem. So we trialled it. For those of you who don't know Maths Pathway, students have, when we were using it, so we used it until a few years ago, gems through the curriculum. So they've got gold means they've already mastered that worksheet. Well, they're called modules. Blue means the module is available to be worked on. Grey means that it's completed but not yet tested. And grey became a real problem. I'll get to that later and why we actually ended up with Mathspace rather than Maths Pathway through lockdowns. The grey, the student hadn't shown the prerequisites for that yet. And that was a real limiting factor in this platform. And as a fellow teacher of mine, when I was on a Mylands training, Bandura, I think, Bandura, said it's just a bunch of math streets, printed worksheets, really, which is what we'd been doing many years before with the maths drills and so on. There's no interactivity, but the data was fantastic. We could focus on growth. I'm starting to get near in the leadership team now and saying we need to focus on growth, not absolute levels. We want to celebrate students who can go from level 4 to level 6 in a year and not call them below expected level. And hopefully with the reduced teacher workload, we can start to rekindle that inquiry and growth mindset. So start to focus working with the kids on that just skating across the top is not deep learning. You want that struggle, and you can see in the maths classroom as they go down into the pit there with the shark, that's where they get distracted. They think it's too hard and you lose them. So that's the point where you're ready to really start deep learning, and we want productive talk. So you can get help from your peers to get out of that pit and feel satisfied and rewarded at the end. And looking at that maths anxiety, changing the mindset. So instead of saying, where's my pointer? Oh, I can do it on this screen. I just can't do maths, so I'm going to train my brain in math. I'm not good at this. What am I missing? I'm awesome at this. So fixed mindset that I'm awesome at this, it seems like a positive thing, but it's actually a limiting thing. So they have to start both with the negative and overly positive mindset, work with the kids on that. And then actually you were talking about the new program you were doing, this is what we'll be focusing on. So it's not a good time to implement the new feature that Daniel was saying. So we're taking an ECP early commencement program for 7 to 10 next week, and this is where we're going to start. Yeah. Now put these 2 years together because this is the maths pathway experience. And I definitely knew bad guy. That's the one that I definitely remembered. So 2018, 19. So we're still, no lockdowns yet. At the end of 2017, we commit to maths pathway for a couple of years. I inherit that as maths learning area leader. And I get to work on my spreadsheets to go beyond the sort of data that Maths Pathway were giving us. These were our results for year 7, the first full year. So our median growth for each of the classrooms, 1.32, 1.3, 1.47, 1, 1.32, 1.31. This 1.47, we sent her to the Maths Pathway training, and she was all about Maths Pathway and almost nothing but Maths Pathway. So a little bit restricted because it's measuring itself. It's Maths Pathway giving you the data of what they've grown at according to their worksheets. But still pretty strong. You're looking at the bottom 10%, so P10 is the 10th percentile, which I prefer this to your five-figure summaries, 5-number summaries. Still 0.85 curriculum level growth is really strong for the bottom 10th percentile. So we're pretty happy with this. Had some concerns, which I'll get to in 2019. I've got to get the mouse off there to go down. Yep. So there's a bit of disquiet brewing. Students staring into computers. Actually went as part of the PLC link to Thornbury High School for their maths PLC meeting, and they don't have bring your own devices yet. So the idea of using an online platform instead of textbooks was just, how do you do that? Don't they just stare into the computer? We were finding that kids were just staring into the computer. We were finding some teachers disempowered, and what I'd never seen before in a maths classroom, they'd be sitting at a table at the front of the maths classroom. And I see a maths classroom, I've been saying that to leadership, you're giving assessment and feedback all the time to students when you're to successfully teach mathematics. It wasn't happening. It was starting not to happen. So it was pretty troubling. Parents were concerned about the narrow focus as well. And the same cohort the year after, it was clear that the fluency gains weren't being maintained. So in year 7, they had the benefit of doing the diagnostic, which had a real strong literacy challenge to it. So the results were probably artificially a little bit low. But given this is the second year, this is no better than what we were getting from our OnDemand results with what we'd been doing before that. So we knew there was an issue, and again, the disempowering of teachers was a real concern. So if you compare that there, so the whole year level, it's gone down from 1.31 median to 0.82 median. Top 10% are loving it. They're just flying ahead. They're finishing in level 10A. Right, what do I do next? Which was also a problem, because they're not doing reasoning, problem solving and understanding. Parents are asking for textbooks again. Students start using maths pathway as an excuse for not liking or not being good at maths. Kids will always find some excuse for why maths is terrible, which is why we work so hard on the growth mindset and the learning pit. Then we get to 2020. Oh, I do know this song. It's a good song. Okay, great. I've just got Amazon Music. I'm very excited about getting for free trial. It's actually hearing all my stuff from the 90s again. April 13 to 17, Wired Magazine 2020. So we all understand what's happened here. That's from The Myth of Sisyphus. That's a lovely little cartoon. Remote learning. We thought we'd set up because we've got an online teaching platform with Maths Pathway. We're just getting no engagement at all with it. And one of the big problems, so students are generally disengaged, but particularly with Maths Pathway. I mentioned the grey modules before that you can't access unless you've got the prerequisites done. That was the killer for us. We couldn't have screencasts or Google Meets and then assign questions to students related to what we were doing. Our hands were completely tied and we couldn't go there to support the kids. Really horrible. I had used Mathspace before when Westpac released the free version of it. I'd been poaching screenshots from it for my own teaching for quite a while. And saw that, Daniel and I met and talked and found out about the free trial during remote learning. So we took that offer up for the full teacher version trial, free trial in 2020. So we've still got the contract with Maths Pathway at the moment. And as I was saying, teachers can assign problems directly to what they're talking about. That was the key thing that we needed to be able to do. So we stopped using Maths Pathway and we never started again the last year of the contract. But before we change over, before we sign up with Mathspace and before we cancel the contract with Maths Pathway, we surveyed the students, and I'll need my pointer here again. So this was a survey score between 1 strongly disagree or 10 strongly agree. And we asked separately, so Mathspace improves my mathematical ability. They got asked the Mathspace questions, prompts, and the Maths Pathway prompts. And then we compared the difference in scores that each student gave to those. And we found that, so this was big, 4 different between is directly relevant to other learning activities in class, which is what we'd suspected. The only negative there is actually a negative prompt. So being negative is actually a good thing there. It's saying that it isn't too challenging. But there wasn't a single prompt that the students had Maths Pathway in favour of Mathspace, which confirmed what we thought, but we wanted the student voice. And we told the students that their answers here would affect what they were going to have for 2020, for 2021, no, 2020. This button. All staff are overwhelmingly supportive, and these will be available afterwards, won't they? Yes, I can flick. There's some of my argument up there that I put to the school council and leadership team about particularly literacy. Do you think this is better than the original? getting there. It's still uphill. 2021, we've heard about these vaccines. Great, they're on the way. Key focus for us, balancing resocialisation, belonging, wellbeing and academic learning. So we figure we've got the freedom now to do, from that inquiry background, and now we've got a resource that can support the fluency at home and in class, that we can start to bring it all together now. And that was our focus, it was hopefully our focus. We didn't know that there was still going to be lots of lockdowns. But we knew it was essential that students were not wedded to their computers when at school. So when they came back after the last lockdowns, the algebra and probability units, we banned computers from the classroom. We had work, and you'll see, but we did assign tasks for them to consolidate at home with. It was too important for us for them to be socialising and not looking into a computer. We balance that now, but straight down from lockdown, they'd spent so much time on their computers at home. We had to break that. So I was focusing on physical paperwork. Everyone gets a booklet, low floor, high ceiling tasks, looking at problem solving, Maths 300 tasks these are, and then they can consolidate what they're learning at home on Mathspace. And it's interactive as well, it's not just a worksheet. So there's applets. And we've got happier and engaged students. Now, Mathspace was improving its functionality very rapidly at this stage, and there were glitches, and so they'll release new features, which are great. And sometimes there's a few glitches, and especially if kids are first time they use it, if something doesn't work, they don't want to use it again. But commendably, on this conversation from this week, fast response to things, to suggestions that we make, and in fact some of the functionality have been directly from feedback from schools like us, particularly in their assessment, diagnostics, which we'll get to in a second. And great feedback about the parent information webinar from this year. We had a lot of families. It was fortunately on our three-way conference day. So it was, our three-way conferences finished at 7, and the Mathspace webinar started at 7. So we were able to advertise it right throughout the school. I'll just go back. I'll get to the diagnostics in a bit more detail. Progressive diagnostics. So we're on-demand. NAPLAN, we did ORWELL testing for a while for Year 7s. There's just so much testing, and when you're testing, you're not teaching. We didn't know about this when we first joined with Mathspace, but this has saved us having to do a lot of other testing. When we have triangulated it, it's just as reliable as our NAPLAN results or our on-demand results. It's more accurate than our on-demand results because it's progressive. In fact, I did an analysis. NAPLAN, for the first time, released the Australian curriculum codes associated with the questions students attempted, and it's very interesting. So it's not the topic of this seminar, but it makes for a very interesting read. Bands are definitely not year levels, nothing like them. So this is probability again. So this is our booklet. Don't need the computer in class, keep them in your lockers. But they can assess. So this is the diagnostic platform. We've got a practice tasks where they can use hints and access the online textbook. We encourage productive talk in the classroom when they're doing practice tasks or tasks that we've assigned, because there's no penalty for using a hint. You don't get it. But on the other side here, you've got a check-in, which is just a couple of questions where they have to work independently. So that's our assessment. And we encourage the kids to level up. And we've found that, as I said, it's very reliable data. The key thing is that you need the kids to be using it. So we have to be aware if a student isn't checking in, that's not their true curriculum level. So that's just part of the evidence we use in teacher judgments. Some people try and game the system, and we've worked together to stop them gaming the system. So for instance, having to wait an hour before they try again, because we saw some students just get their older brother or parent to boost them up to get them above expected level on their reports. And parents are quite disappointed if they do that and we still give them at level or not quite at level, because our evidence suggests they've been gaming the system, which I believe Spain might have done this morning. It's a good way to get rid of Germany. So this is one of our classes. over the last 60 days. So over the probability unit, we can see how much they've grown according to curriculum levels. So that students there has grown probably about 2 curriculum levels in probability. This tells you where their absolute level is on the horizontal scale, from 2 to 10A. This button. So in 2022, going downhill now, our mantra at the start of the year, hoping for no more lockdowns, is that we want students to want to be in the maths classroom, that we put that ahead of everything else. We thought our student outcomes would come from that. So if we're doing the Cartesian plane, we're getting them outside to model 2x minus 1. There's our year 7 cohort from this year. Anyone who didn't want to be in a photo was told to put the number over their face. That's from our 3rd floor. That's our Gaga pit up the top left-hand corner there. That's a very popular new feature to our very small school. So this is an example of the teacher view. So there's 2 students there in year 7. It's a pity the mouse over actually covers up what the results are there for Cartesian plane. And we surveyed the kids, so we started our Choose to Math surveys this year right across the school, rather than pivot, because we wanted more specific maths data. We found that in the year 7s, 56% agreed more strongly that they try to work with others who can help them in maths, which was a fantastic result for us. We're so happy about that. I said before that we used dynamic grouping, and we used the TLI funding to put an extra teacher on, so we could, for things like number where there's such a strong spread, we could work in groups of 5 or 6 at really basic level 3 numeracy, whereas we have a bigger cohort working at level. What was I going to say there? But we don't have the TLI funding as much next year, sadly. But we're still blocking teachers all together and in double rooms with doors, so we can open up and team teach when we can. We want mixed abilities when it's good to do so, but when we've got the flexibility to split them up when they really need to be split up. And balancing fluids. So we want to make sure after 2 years of lockdowns, we want to balance fluency with the other proficiencies, including cognitive activation and inquiry. So inquiry is our roots. Cognitive activation is very much what the department's selling now with the numeracy leadership workshops. I'm definitely a learning specialist by this stage, by the way. That's 2 years I've been a learning specialist now. 2 years of lockdowns. Balance. So multi-curriculum level investigations. So this is what we did with our year 9s. It's worked so well. So really simple. We didn't have much time, and we'd been working in. We still had we had the 3 teachers for 2 advisories, so we had the ability for smaller groups as well. We listed all the I can statements provided by Mathspace. Thank you. They're gold. I can describe and order the possibility of everyday events from the least likely to most likely. We got them to write down whether they were at 0, 1, 2, 3, star is you've mastered it, that particular topic. Write them down from levels 4 to 9. And then they had to set the goal for what they wanted to be in fluency, based on their work on Mathspace, at the end of the unit. And we told them we were going to report on this. Then they had to investigate each. They had to choose 3 year levels. We chose 3 because they were so far behind after the 2 years of lockdowns. Saying to Daniel on the way in here, year 9s missed year 7 and 8. They're like grade 6s in year 9 bodies. Really tough for them this year. So they had to figure out how to demonstrate it in their investigation and tick it off when they demonstrated it in their books. So the class home, as I was saying before, dedicated to understanding, problem solving and reasoning. This is an example of one of the students' work. So they write the I can statement. They're going to look at monopoly and 2 up for this level 7 descriptor. They've got the sample space there. They've used 2 up for the tree diagrams. This is getting up to level 8 now, so at most exclusive or at least changing to for inclusive or. But we can do that because we can assign the consolidation questions, and we've got that assessment resource available to us all the time. And this is one of the students. That's that student, actually. So it hadn't been using waypoints, it's called the progressive assessment. Hadn't been using it really enough at all, but once physically had to write it down and give it to us that that's what they were and this is where they wanted to be. This was a 4-week period, went from a level 4 to a level 8 and a bit there. He's one of our better students as well. And we've got the growth there. Now this is my spreadsheet, this isn't a Mathspace spreadsheet. Yeah, so I've downloaded the data and made it so that I can attach this to a PDF and onto Compass. So it's really clear for parents what they've achieved. And probability is a good one because there's not much to cover in well, that is the whole 4 to 9 curriculum there. So you couldn't do that with number. Number's far too big, too many descriptors. You can do it for parts of number, so for whole number, for instance. We've got 10 minutes. This is non-Mathspace coming up, but this is, have I gone backwards here? Oh yeah, so this is whole number. So learning, this was shown to me in a Mylands training. This is fantastic. This is at the front of every student's maths book. It breaks down the factors of the numbers 1 to 100. We try to get them to use this instead of times tables. And I'll play the video here. That's tricky. I've got to turn the laser pointer off, do I, to play that video? Here we go. So, you can manipulate them. So we give the kids access to this to play around with. This is using factors to simplify fractions. So the factors are 24, 2, 2, 2 and 3. So 2 cubed and 3. What does cancelling mean? Oh, here we go. Okay, so we can start to cancel out the prime factors. This amazing resource. It's not just factor circles, but the whole range of other resources on Mathagon, Polypad that blow your mind. I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years of what's going to be available online. This is a British group that does this. There you go. So it's 4 on 3. And this is our handwritten work in class as well that matches it up. So we use those factors, we introduce them at the start of the year and we use them all through the year. It builds on arrays as well. Arrays is absolutely essential. And we've got the consolidation work behind all that as well with Mathspace again. We've got the prime factorisations there. That's actually an applet there for factor trees. It's an investigation. Celtic Knots is a really good one. It's the first time I did it this year. And of course the civ of Eratosthenes. Nearly got there. This is the skills check-in, so this is the assessment for that particular topic. This is one of the questions on there. Normally they have to get about 4 or 5 questions to get up to a star. And the bit is they can go backwards. We have students going backwards because they're not consolidating properly, not concentrating. And that's something we have to teach them to do, obviously, as well. And that's what their results look like to them. So that's a student view of what they see. And one of our other goals this year was to shift the Year 9 to I'm in charge of the AIP goals for maths and numeracy now. We aim to shift the top 2 numeracy bands from 10% to 15%. That was our results this year. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. My literacy learning specialist said, you've got a job for a while. Yeah, pretty happy with that. And that's only one student, actually, that's below national minimum standards. Never seen that before. That was Year 9s. That was our Year 9 cohort. Yeah, so we have lots of room for growth in our Year 7 cohort, by the way. We've got 11 of the 50-odd students are below national minimum standards. That's where me as a Mylands teachers, I've got another part of my role as well. So again, just to revisit the problems that I said at the start, knowing students, assigning fluency problems and supporting them wherever they're ready to learn next, and consolidating their learning in the classroom. Now that's a big shift, because after spending time at home on computers, they do not like doing homework at home this year. It's been a real struggle to get a lot of the students to do homework at home. When we assign tasks, there's actually only 9 questions, and it's with my year 9s at the moment, I've been saying, okay, that's great, you can do the first 2 questions, getting your head around it, you're using hints. May take you 5 or 6 minutes with the hints to try and figure out how to work this question out. By the 9th question, you're hoping that they're taking 20 seconds to do it, because that's going to be the differentiator between what study score you get compared to someone else. You just don't do 2 questions and I can do that. You do 2 questions and then figure out how you can do it effectively and faster. So make sure you're accurate, make sure you understand, but then go that extra mile. And 9 questions is a really good size. So student outcomes, we've got, we can assign tasks to build and consolidate fluency. Got hints for every assigned question and an online textbook available. There's immediate feedback. We can find and address gaps in learning. For teachers, we've got our flexible assignment and cyclic assessment. We encourage productive talks. They say, well, do you really want us to talk? Yes, we want you to say those words, those maths words. And progressive assessment. And for us, we use the assessment to group and regroup students as well. So it's not just a whole curriculum level estimate, it's for every half strand. So there's one for number, one for algebra, one for probability, one for statistics, one for measurement, and one for geometry. At year 9s, we actually, with that probability task, they selected their own groups for statistics by what they chose in probability. So they chose 6 to 8, that's the group they were in for statistics as well. With movement, we certainly talk to students. If there's anything not challenging enough or too challenging, then we're certainly happy to move students within groups, between groups. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vaughan, for coming here today and sharing your expertise with us. I'll just share 3 things that I've learned from working with Vaughan up to the presentation. So one thing that Vaughan shared with me as he was going through what he was thinking about doing with this presentation was he said that most digital platforms out there only really deal with the fluency and understanding of mathematics and don't really offer much in the way of conceptual understanding or problem solving, which I'd never really thought of before, but it was great to see that, Vaughan's figured out a way to use these skills check-ins, he and his team, to be able to not just look at fluency and understanding, but also bring in some of that work that the kids are doing in the classroom conceptually with their probability exercises and things to be able to then capture that understanding, very quickly using our skills check-ins. Another thing that I really liked was seeing how the school, when they were considering changing resources, they actually surveyed the students. Students are the ones at the end of the day, if they're going to enjoy engaging with a platform, that's an important factor, right? They're going to get more out of what they're doing in the maths classroom if they actually like what they're doing. And then finally, Vaughan is an incredible, spreadsheet wizard and comes from a software background. I know myself, I'm not so great at spreadsheets, but I really liked the data-driven approach that the school has taken. So, when they're thinking about what they're doing at the school and, maybe looking at their NAPLAN results or their OnDemand data or it could be PATM data from the last few years, has that really changed very much with the resources that the school has been using? And you saw that there were a couple of years there in the Fitzroy's history that it hadn't really changed, regardless of the different approaches they were taking. But they finally managed to find something that works. Now, of course, every school's going to have a different resource that they like or might engage with. Not every school is the same, okay? But I just really enjoyed learning not only about Mathspace, but like other tools like Mathagon and things like that the school have been using. I know you use Desmos as well, I think, with the year 11s and 12s. Just being able to kind of creatively bring together some resources to maybe do something a little different than versus maybe traditional textbooks. Okay, that's it from me. I'll pass on to Peter, who I think is going to facilitate a quick Q&A.
If there are any questions, please shout them out. There's no online questions from the online audience at the moment.
Okay. I do have a free T-shirt. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can get a T-shirt.
We have one question here. Go.
Yeah,
You'll just repeat the question.
Yes,
How did you go about implementing the platform? And for example, how did you structure the implementation at different year levels and use some of those features like check-ins?
Yes, great. So at the start, when we first trialled it, it was our saving grace for being able to assign questions to what we were trying to teach. So there wasn't, we had already planned what we wanted to teach, and we were producing screencasts and Google Meets and so on. Sometimes grouping as well. We'd target the lower students maybe at the start of the lesson, while other students would try the assigned tasks and then meet us halfway through the session in Google Meets, so that we could actually see what they'd tried and what they got right and wrong. We actually moved to a you do, we do, you do model. The rest of the school went to a I do, you do, we do, I do, we do, you do, the gradual release of responsibility. But listening to the principals' conference last year, we wanted to get the students curious. I can't do this. Got them hooked. So cognitive activation, and then do the explicit instruction when they realise what they don't know, rather than chalk and talk at the start. And the kids are just checking out, I'm never going to need this. That's problem solving is a really important way of doing that. But once a week we do Numeracy Ninja, Numeracy Ninja booklets, which is another British resource, which is amazing. 30 questions of times tables and so on. Same with the assessments. So regular assessments it's only the class I didn't have today in Year 7, the last 20 minutes will be on algebra, because we've got a pre-Year 8, the higher level students, we're giving them the rest of the Level 7 algebra curriculum that half the year level can't deal with because they can't think abstractly, collecting like terms and so on. So the last 20 minutes with the CRT, they're using the waypoints, the progressive assessment. So wherever you would have included textbook questions in your planning, that's where you put in the assigned tasks and the assessments. It's just the flexibility to be able to assign from the whole curriculum to every student. That's the massive difference.
For me, it's really important that you're still using a variety of tools.
Yes.
Like you've got to have the variety of tools and find the best tool for the different topics to engage the students and to do the proficiencies and everything and plug them in different ways. So, you know, I could see the experimentation over the years, and I'm sure that will continue because of the way that you're working, which is good.
So I still print a lot of materials because I want them handwriting. Interesting, actually, sister school college, they're presenting next door. So they won't hear this. My Year 11 specialist class this year, we were working on Desmos, not Mathspace for specialists, but they opened up, all the Fitzroy students had the computer at the back of their desk, and their workbook open to the front. All the Collingwood students had their computer right up next to them. I said that's the culture difference there in computers. And when I was at Thornbury, and they don't have bring your own computers, they just have one computer lab, which is changing next year. Aren't they just going to stare into their computers? Well, we've got to explicitly instruct them how to use computers as a medium. It's not where they do their thinking. It's interactive tools like Desmos, there is a bit of thinking done by the software, but we want them handwriting, yeah, absolutely. And that's why we say just leave your computers in the lockers for for some units. But we're still assigning the Mathspace content for them to consolidate after school, and working with parents and emailing parents about how that fits in to what we're trying to teach and why consolidation and fluency is so important, but it's not everything about maths. Even in leadership, some leaders think, it's not about teaching them how to 7 times 8. It's not, no, that's a tiny part of what we're trying to build as creative and critical thinkers.
Thanks very much. We are right on time, so thanks to everybody for joining us in this session. That's the end of this session, and so I'd like to just thank Daniel and Vaughan again for their time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Our next session is